to tonight's guest, who is Peter Toudjarski from Botron Software, and he will tell us something about the future of Jira administration with Power Admin, something
Yes,
that he
absolutely.
invented, basically. So you founded and invented that. So over to you and over to your presentation.
Thank you for the warm introduction, and good evening to everyone. This is my first Zoom webinar in this shape and form, so I apologize if there are any technical issues. So that said, we're gonna jump right into the presentation. I'm gonna start sharing my screen in a second. And I'm using a laptop camera that has the strange angle of the video. All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, that looks good.
All right, excellent. My picture here is back at the time when I had shorter hair because the hair salons in California were working. So now with the quarantine, things are much longer. Okay, so I'm the founder, and my main job is product management and product marketing in Botron Software. Okay, so my history in Atlassian starts quite a long time ago, actually in 2006. This is the first time I become admin for Jira and Confluence. I was a software engineering manager, and the company I was working for started using Confluence and Jira, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this. And in 2010, I started working as engineering director in Serena Software. This is a company which at that time was about 3 times bigger than Atlassian and operating in the very similar ALM space. They had a mainframe business, but as well as they had products called TeamTrack or Serena Business Manager, which is very similar to Jira. And then in 2012, I founded Botron Software. In 2013, we released the first version of our flagship product, Configuration Manager for Jira. What we're going to talk today is how companies adopt Jira and how we were able to transform that and assist those customers based on our experience as Jira admins. Basically, we founded the company from Jira admins for Jira admins, our knowledge and experience. So, as you probably know, Jira, the typical adoption still bottom up. We can see nowadays there are very large companies who go through a very methodical process of adoption, but that's still rare. Quite often still, some people, some software engineers, managers, project managers are installing Jira on their own laptops, you know, the free 10-user version, and start using that, and the Jira starts growing. So, very much so, quite often, this is under someone's desks. Back in 2006, I was engineering manager, I was mentioned, in Tumbleweed Communications, and I was trying to get my life outside of Microsoft Project and Excel. This was no happy days for me. So I was hearing that some people are using Jira and they're very happy. Yes, I thought it's called Jira back then. And IT, I spoke to them and they categorically didn't want to do anything to do with maintaining one more system. So this is where the Jira was hosted in Confluence. So this is actually a picture of my desk back then. So I don't recall where Jira was, where Confluence, and I think this was my main station, the left one. Again, not so sure. Actually, the right one. But you see, I had a switch and I have a UPS. So, you know, common sense IT best practices, I did a little bit. And don't get me started with the extension cords and, you know, all of that. Complete mess. All right. So this is a very typical picture of how other companies and other people adopt Jira. Now, it's usually a laptop. 2006, laptops was not that common, so it was a desktop machine. All right, so then while I was working already using it, I had 2 teams, about 13, 14 developers, and actually our life improved on a daily basis. I started replying with screenshots from dashboards to certain people, questions, and be able to collect certain metrics, and all this was happening pretty easily. So then some of my buddies who are managing other development is, hey, can I start use that? I see that you're doing those reports so much faster. So typical step 2 is the first expansion from those early adopters to multiple teams, okay? In Jira is very successful with that step, happens quickly and even expands even furthermore. That leads us to step number 3. It usually happens when it comes to the attention of senior management. They see how useful that is, and one business unit, one department get jealous of other department by having better tools, and they wanted to do that. Okay, it could be company-wide within the engineering, or IT may not be company-wide within all the different functions, but that's still, we still call it company-wide adoption. And step 4 is when usually those companies have some experience already with Jira, and they understand how important and then mission critical it is. We are coming to the area, to the period of mature usage. Okay, so this is just the timeline that looks of the typical Jira expansion. Nowadays, I think quite often some companies can start with step 2, since Jira is already in the leaders quadrant of Magic Quadrant by Gartner for quite a lot of years. But back 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, I think this was a pretty typical flow. Okay, now we're going to look at the adoption steps from a couple other different angles. Okay, by the way, if you guys have any questions, let me know. So let's take a look from administration responsibilities. Okay, so usually when it's someone's desk is a self-appointed team member, an enthusiast, as we call him, and that was me. Okay, when IT said we don't want to have anything to do with one more system, I said, okay, I'll do it. It's not a rocket science. Okay, when there are multiple teams involved, then usually the administration is to the same team member, but this team member is recognized. People know who is the guy to let them in, who is the guy to make a change to a workflow, who is the guy to create a new custom field, etc., etc. Okay, so it's still under the desk, poorly managed, enthusiast. Okay, and usually when we become a company-wide adoption step, there could be a dedicated app admin. Okay, so now usually this is the area, the stage where IT takes over. This app admin may not do just Atlassian, they may do other applications as well, but it's a professional. Okay, and when we talk about mature usage, as I mentioned, this is usually driven by mission criticality of the systems, where there is quite a lot of management involvement to make sure the system's up and running. It might be SLAs, etc. Okay, so that's an interesting perspective on the adoption based on who is administering those systems. Okay, another viewpoint is best practices. Okay, I can tell you when it was under my desk, there was no practice. I think I was making backups every now and then. I was storing the backups on the same hard drive or on the same server. So, not ideal. Then, when it's a recognized team member and multiple teams using the system, we are starting to see the beginning of a change management. Back in the time, this was quite often ICQ or just an email. When we do this presentation in real, I usually ask if someone is using ICQ. But it turned out it's been so long ago that nowadays I sometimes ask, do you guys know what ICQ was? So if you're smiling, that's what usually happens. Actually, I found in one user group that one guy is still using ICQ in 2019. So that was a bit of a surprise for me. All right. During the company-wide adoption phase, there is usually when we see a full implementation of a TSP, change management. I usually ask what TSP stands for, and I give a little gift. This could be Belgium chocolate or some fluffy animals, some little lions you might have seen, Power Admin lions. TSP stands for Test Staging Production. It's the proper implementation of a change management system as dictated by ITIL or any common sense IT application administration. Okay, and during the fourth stage, when we see mature usage in terms of best practices, we see a full set of practices for governance and scaling. The system is mission critical. The management wants it up and running as much as possible. They want some SLA for resolving issues based on the criticalities. This is where we see the governance and scaling. Okay, so these are the three perspectives for the Jira adoption. Starting from the different steps as it grows inside the company, from who is managing it and how this progressed from enthusiasts to professionals with management oversight, from no best practices to full set of practices for governance and scaling. Okay? So Botrons' mission is to support best practices for governance and scaling, and usually those are companies who are the different phases of adopting those practices, from step 2, when there is a beginning of change management, to step 4, when we see the full scale of practices implemented. This is our mission. This is where we focus all our efforts. And this is what our thinking and vision and strategy is. Okay. So currently, we support several best practices around core Jira administration. This is first the automation of the test staging production pipeline. So this is related to change management. The second set is related to project migrations. Those could be part of merges, splits, cleanups, and other activities. Basically migrate a whole project, not just configuration, but data, add-ons, pretty much everything without losing any data. Okay. Project templating and true project archiving are two very critical practices for if you want your server to scale. There are companies who are pushing the limit even for large and well set up data center installations, like companies with 7, 8 million Jira issues with hundreds of custom fields, etc. Project templating allows you to keep the configuration complexity down to a pre-approved, well-known, well-performing set of settings. This includes custom fields, screens, permission schemes, workflows, etc. It helps reporting be able to look at across multiple projects, across the data which doesn't have a lot of discrepancy, and drives a very consistent reporting, as well as reuse. What's the best way to explain this? Allows easier collaboration between teams since they know what process they're using, and it's not just wild set of whatever I want. Okay. True project archiving. This is a little interesting since Atlassian announced that data center supports archiving. That's why I wanted to put the word true archiving, since what Atlassian did is basically removing issues from the index, which does not meet any of the companies we know data retention and archival policies. So with Configuration Manager, you can archive your projects to a cold archival server and put the right level of access and control based on your data retention policy. Okay. So these are just 4 of the core best practices for managing Jira. There are others we support, I think currently about 10, but these are the 4 most important ones. Okay, so as I mentioned, the mission of our company is to serve the Jira administrators and provide tooling for practices for management and scale, governance and scale. So our mission is to be that future where the Jira administrator can do their job without sacrificing productivity or making workarounds, to be that one solution that helps every time the Jira administration needs help. Okay, And we've been executing on that vision and mission for the last about 2 years and change. Okay. How we define next level Jira administration? We found it much more efficient. I'm still the administrator of our Jiras, and when I receive a change request, I'm usually trying to figure out how long it's going to take. And let's say I got 3 requests and I'm thinking 30 minutes. It usually takes a lot longer. It could be an hour and a half, 2 hours. Even I've been working with those systems of almost 15 years. So I know pretty well what they're doing, how they're doing it, but the efficiency is not great. The UI in Jira has been mainly designed and written at, I think, around 2007 and 8. Okay, if you guys remember Jira 4, I think that's when the latest significant improvements were there implemented. Power. I usually do a little poll here and ask how many of you go in the database on a daily, weekly basis. Usually there are a lot of people who do that because the actual Jira admin functionality does not empower you to do your job in the best possible way. So you have to apply all kind of workarounds. So accuracy. We see this quite often when people are trying to make changes from a particular system, but they result in not so much desired additional changes or impact from those changes, from the current changes you're making. So the accuracy is super important since it leads back both to efficiency and customer satisfaction. Last but not least, the next level of Jira administration should be error-free. What does that mean? For me, by following the Atlassian guidelines, standards, and Botron guidelines standards, those actions should not result in an issue. Like I make one change and result all these kind of issues were introduced because of that. Okay. So we packed all those things into Power Admin. Okay. So the way we see all these things applied is across the following use cases: change management and impact analysis, configuration cleanup and optimizations, corruption-free changes, and usage. I'm gonna see a little bit later what do I mean by usage. Okay, so again, change management and impact analysis, configuration optimizations and cleanup, corruption-free changes, and usage. Okay. So all the knowledge we got across all areas of experience and working with many customers from the services front, we decided to create a product called Power Admin. They are, Power Admin is, okay, the Power Admin is where we put all this new functionality around empowerment, efficiency, the error-free, and the usage. And it is available as standalone add-on, which is free for now, as well as is available as a component of Configuration Manager for Jira. So if you have Configuration Manager for Jira, then you have the full functionality of Botron Power Admin. Okay, moving on. Go for Power Admin, we wanted to start with the user experience because the current user experience of Jira administrators is more like a little bit like, not so great. It's a job, we're going to do it, but it can be done. It can be done in a much easier and fun way. So we wanted the experience to be like, never seen anything like this in Jira before. So the current knowledge workers heavily rely on searching and filtering anywhere you do, on every single app or web application, you can find this. So I wanted to start with a single search place. So here, what you see is a landing page in Power Admin, where you can search for each and every object in the Jira configuration. Okay. The search, remember, experience Jira like never before. I usually ask, how long do you have to wait until you get your results, you know, from the, you know, from what you're trying to find. And usually it takes a long time. Pages load slow. Sometimes there's pagination, etc. Our goal that there is not a single page, there's not a single search result, there are loads for slower than half a second. If you get 4,000 custom fields in your Jira server. Usually it could take minutes to load. In Botron, it's under half a second. So we did a lot of work to be able to say that, and we're very proud with that accomplishment. So that covers to a large extent the productivity and the efficiency part. Okay, so this is how a search page result looks like. Okay, so as you can see, we have a couple of really unique information pieces here, which actually pretty hard to find out otherwise. For example, right here from the result page, you can see the custom field ID in this case. And you can see if this custom field has been used in how many projects or not. Used in 0 projects, used in 5 projects. Big difference, right? The second thing is we have filters for specific objects. For example, the one you see, I think is available for all the different objects. You can filter the list of all objects based on in which projects are they being used. Okay, so that's the filter. Apologize. As you can see, we have none here, which allows you to identify custom fields which are not used in any project, and those are interesting for cleanup operations. If you remember, this was one of the use cases I spoke about. The second advanced filter, it's about, okay, we have second one which goes by type. The third one goes by global context, and there are a couple others which are being developed as we speak. Okay. Once you find out what you're looking for and you select it, you can apply bulk actions. Bulk actions are currently being developed, and we're working with merge and replace right now. I usually ask people on the live user groups if you guys know the difference between merge and replace. I'll be happy to chat with you about that in the later on. Okay, I was going to say after the meeting when we drink beer, but obviously that's a little different setup we have now. Okay, bulk actions. Okay, now let's take a look. This is an object detail page. This is the page of a single custom field. Okay, what you see here very quickly is the ID, again, plain text. You can see that this user field is used in 4 projects, and these are the details: 1 screen, 1 agile board, 1 workflow, 1 filter, security scheme, notification scheme, permission scheme, and dashboard. 1, and just 2 notification schemes. Okay. You can see the list of all those objects, which we call dependent objects, where the object is being used. You can see the screen, the workflows, etc. All those objects at the same time, they act first as navigation, and second, you can get back to the results as well. So now the navigation is once you find your objects, you can find all the other configuration of this object belong to. We can quickly them to either manually search or use some other ways to search the object. Okay. Okay. So navigation is huge, since once you start doing one change request, they're usually related. Let's say someone wants a new project or changing a project, you can find all the needed places where you want to make this change right in this page and navigate to them right away. In addition to that, let me show you here, we have inline actions as well. So if you want to configure the memo objects, you're welcome to. But at the same time, you can configure the actual workflows, for example, which uses the default user field for something. Okay. All right. So that's the summary of the usage. That's the usage navigation. Okay. Now, let's take a look at one example. Okay, looks like we have a question. How does the filter for custom field usage within projects goes only by context, or does it also check for values within projects? We do check for values as well. So let me actually show you. So this is the indicator for issues. and this is the indicators for usage and configuration. Those are two separate things. Okay? So we do check for both of them. I hope that helps. So how we do this? We basically scan the system and we developed our own technology, which gives us this information much faster than different APIs that Atlassian have developed. So we try to keep our promise of being efficient everything you do. Okay? All right, that was a great question. If there are others, let me know. Now, we spoke about the issues, the dependent objects, the navigation. Okay, so now let's do a little kind of a hands-on exercise. Okay, we're gonna do sort of two use cases in one action: change management and corruption free. Okay, so our change management request says that we need to rename a custom field. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is we're going to rename a custom field via the Jira UI. So this is how the page looks. Some of you, including myself, make errors or mistakes because I'm not sure whether I should hit edit or configure. So every now and then I'm making a mistake there. Right now we're at the right place. So let's say we're gonna rename risk to risk 1. So now some of you might be aware, but in Configuration Manager for Jira, we have a feature called Integrity Check, which checks Jira configuration for integrity errors, which would prevent you to use that configuration as working. Okay, so when you run it, it gives you a result, a scan result of everything which has corrupted data. So for example, what we're gonna get in this case is that missing objects, 3 objects refer to missing custom field risk. Hey, that's our custom field. We just removed it and this thing's showing correctly. Let's see what the problem is at the bottom. So as you can see here, the 3 filters, which are using, 2 are using some sort of a JQL for query, and the other one is using just, some predefined filter by Atlassian. So as you can see, this is an actual report from Issue Metrics, and it says that there are 3 not critical issues. So they're categorized as warnings, and basically the queries here are referring to a missing custom field called risk, which makes a lot of sense since now we change risk to risk 1 and it's not a risk anymore. Okay, so there are a number of places where Jira refers to objects by their IDs, not by their name. Sorry, by their name, not by the ID. So every time the name changes, we're getting a result like this. Deleting a custom field, if you ask yourself how big of a problem is, even bigger than this one. You can get in real serious mess if you don't do that. So now let's take a look and see how the same action is done via Power Admin interface. Okay. So first, we have a magic edit button, okay, which is right there where it belongs, as autocomplete, as a auto edit sort of pop-up. Okay. Now we see that there are 3 areas where this filter has been used. First, in 5 workflows, okay, 7 filters, and 3 dashboards. Okay. And once we do the change from here, when I run integrity check for Jira, it will show no issues whatsoever. The key is that we know what are all the places where this custom field is being used. So we're gonna go and do a proper delete. We're actually gonna clean up the mess which normal Jira UI leaves. Okay. Any questions so far? A pretty simple example that you guys understood? If not, let me know down in the panel section. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the second use case, which is configuration optimization. Okay, very common nowadays. Companies end up with 500, 600, 700 custom fields. I think we've seen even over 500 custom fields in some cases, 1,500. Okay, and at some point they realize that, hey, your Jira is not performing, it's crashing because of that behavior. Okay, so you need to ease up on the configuration and customizations if you want to have a low-performing server. So currently, there is basically no way you can do this besides write some mumbo-jumbo SQL. Okay.
I have another question.
Yes.
Does this functionality also list filters which the current admin has no view permissions for?
Great question. And I think the answer is yes. There is a special note for filters which are not shared to the admin, what we call private filters. Because another use case which we didn't mention, because that's probably not the most common one, is when someone leaves the company, how you change the ownership of those things. It's basically almost mission impossible unless you go to the database. The goal is that we handle all those cases and provide functionality for you. So I think the answer is yes. Looks like you had some issues in the past with that. Right, Jörg?
I think so. It was not my question, but I think that the person who asked it had these issues.
Okay, all right. Okay, so now again, as we know where this custom field is being used, we can go and clean that. Okay, so first thing first, when you go to the search result with custom fields, we have those custom filters. So this is a filter which allows me to filter the custom fields used just for a specific projects if we're planning to migrate them to a different system, or I can search for projects using none, which means that they are sort of orphaned, and those are usually the perfect candidates to delete them, because the impact is going to be very small to none if it just you know, has some relationship with those projects. Okay, the other type, the other filter is based on the context. Okay, if it's global, we know that that's a higher impact custom field, that custom field that has no context. Oh, sorry, it has project-specific context. Okay, last type of filter, which is not implemented yet, is related to the data that exists inside the custom field table for this custom field. Okay. Whether it's being used anywhere or basically none, or in certain issues. So you can choose none, and it's going to show you the filters, sorry, the custom fields which are used anywhere, which means that this is a perfect candidate to be deleted. There's not going to be any impact to users. Or you can filter based on the limit of issues. We know that custom field not being used anywhere, it's kind of rare, because when you usually create it, you want to try it, so you do a little test and put some data in issue or two. So it's not truly a not used anywhere. Okay, that's why we have this filter limit. Hey, what if it's not used in 500 fields? Do we need that? Maybe not, maybe yes, depending on that. But the important part is that you know the data. We provide you the data, how, where, and how it's being used. Okay. Another type of usage, not just if there is data, but when was the last time this data has been updated? The time period in which things are still thought as relevant shrinks each and every year. Maybe some years ago it was 5 years, maybe now it's just 2. Okay. And again, I mentioned the word in the book, actions. Okay. Let's now go and take a look at the last use case we have prepared here, the usage one. Okay. So now there are 2 distinct use cases for the usage functionality. First, imagine you're a Jira admin and you have to upgrade your Jira. Okay. So there are 2 aspects here. When you upgrade, you need to plan your upgrade, like, you know, downtime and communication, etc. But at the same time, you have to upgrade your add-ons. Okay, and there are 2 cases again here. Are you using these add-ons often, how often, etc. Have you used them recently? So you can find out for each application, okay, how they're being used. Shall you renew your license? Shall you plan to upgrade them? Okay. So for example, this is the usage detail from one of our own plugins, Issue Matrix. As you can see, it's used in 5 projects in 6 custom fields. All the green stuff are links. Okay. So you can go and quickly check and base your decision on that. Will I be able to buy this and throw that party or not? Okay. Okay, so 5 projects. This custom field is used in this project. This custom field is used in those 2 projects. As you can see, those custom fields are used, each one of them. Okay. So again, the usage, it's the perfect candidate for upgrade planning and license renewals. This information you cannot find anywhere else. You can see whether it has data or whether it has been used in configuration. Again, you can base the decisions on that. So this is Power Admin and the future of Jira administration in a nutshell. A newly designed, much more efficient and much more empowered way for Jira administrators to do their job before the need of running scripts or running SQL on a daily basis, something that will give them not just speed, but at the same time confidence, because there's going to be less mistakes by understanding the usage of configuration better and as well faster. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Right is a roadmap. We are currently working on version 2. The bulk actions, first of which is merge, replace. For custom fields is in progress. And soon after that, the product will become commercial. Currently, it's a free add-on in the marketplace. It is a free module of configuration manager as well. And, you know, you can take advantage while, you know, it's available free. If you have any feedback, currently our backlog is entirely composed of feedback from end users. Let us know. Few of the experts and influencers in our area, in the area of Atlassian, have already reviewed it and it quickly become their most favorable tool, as well as we have it's been the fastest growing app in terms of installations from the marketplace as well for quite a long period of time. Okay, with that, you know, I open for questions and comments. If you guys have some experience with the tool, I'll be happy to hear it. How was that?
Okay, so thank you very much for that. While I promote everybody to panelists, there's one question in the F&A field. The usage is just about add-ons, about custom fields, JQL functions, and workflow functions, right? Do you have a more detailed report on the workflow usage of an add-on functions? That is another question.
Sure. So great. So that's a great question. So first, when we say about usage, we mean just the usage of an application. The typical usage of a custom field, it is handled by the reviewer. Now, how we determine how it's being used? Yes, there are 2 different ways to determine that. First is inside the configuration, if it contributes a custom field JQL or workflow, or a dashboard, or something about agile boards as well. Or there is a technology called Configuration Manager SPI, with which each and every application could become compatible with Configuration Manager, and then we'll know about other custom usages. So for example, you know, we can, with Proforma, I think we can say how many forms have been created with Proforma, since this is part of the data you know, so this is part of the data which they provide via the SPI. think about it, private stuff that exists in AO tables, we can understand about that only if the add-on implements the SPI interface. Otherwise, it's private, something we don't have knowledge of. We don't know even what the add-on does. Okay, I hope this makes sense. Great question, Frank.
Okay, you're all panelists now, so you can unmute and ask questions if you like. If there's a pause, I will, there's Frank again. Frank is unmuting. Hello,
Yeah,
Frank.
I have another one. So you mentioned the merge topic earlier. Was it just about like merging a couple of instances of Jira and just like dragging over the type in the same project, so like the custom fields and everything, or does it also include merging of projects? So I mean, I'm particularly interested in merging, like for example, like two projects together and having the project-specific data. So the versions, the releases, and the components like merge together so that you don't have like duplicates. Or
sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, the answer is yes. You can merge two different projects even now. Okay. The way you do it, you create snapshot of one of the projects and you deploy the merge deployment function mode over the other one. It's going to add all the components and versions, etc., etc. Now, if the configuration is such as you need to do some more complex stuff with them. So let's say the two projects using different estimation fields, okay? But you want to use one going forward. During the deployment, you can map the custom field used by the source project to the destination one. Or, so this is natively supported by Configuration Manager deployment functionality. Okay. Now, where Power Admin comes in play is, imagine you are having not two, but 4 estimation fields. Okay. And you want to end up with just one. Okay. So 4 to 1 is not an easy operation to do during deployment, especially if we have to provide you with a custom UI to do that. So what we decided is that all those cleanup or transformations of the configuration you can do prior or after the migration using Power Admin. So in Power Admin, you say, I want to merge those 2 estimation fields, okay? And there are different ways you can do it. And once it's done, you end up with 1. Don't do this again and again until you end up from 4 to 1. That's what the merge and replace functionality for custom fields is going to be in Power Admin.
Okay, thanks.
Did I answer your question, Frank?
Yes.
All right, give it a try. We're very interested to find out what your experience is, and if you have any troubles, let our support know. Since you're in Germany, I assume, and our support is in Bulgaria, they will reply almost momentarily during business hours. Okay?
Okay, thanks.
Excellent. That was a great question.
Okay, any other questions from the audience?
Yes, I have a question. So how about migrating the project from Jira server or data center to Jira Cloud? It will work with the snapshot of the project?
It's like almost 7:00 p.m. So this is not available yet. Unfortunately, it's not going to be available even midnight. It's going to take a few months. So we're actively working on that so soon, very soon.
Okay, cool.
We're working, let's put it this way, we have a working tool that does that. Our service team is using it, but it's not ready for, mass audience, okay?
I see, okay. So just checking the notes, release notes.
Yeah, it's gonna be a big bang announcement with, live music and
perfect,
and beer and pizza and everything. It's gonna be pretty big since we're working on this for quite some time. So you're gonna hear it, even if you don't. Excellent.
Thanks for answer.
Perfect. Yep. That answered my question. So I have to find another one. Perfect.
Oh, okay. So cloud is the future, guys. Okay, right?
Yes.
They're releasing issue matrix for cloud in the next, I guess, 10 days. We're gonna make it before 1st of July.
Okay. Let me ask one question. You talked about true project archiving. So putting a project on a cold server. Let's say I do that. I put a project on a cold server. Time goes on. I have updated my Jira instance and all that.
Perfect.
And now somebody says, well, we had that old project. Can we have that back? So how does that work when the version that you archived the Jira from is now different from the one that's actually in production?
Perfect. That's a great question. And that's a very common challenge in the area of archiving, right? Backup restore as well. So actually, I'm going to put this in a little bit of a history perspective. If you have done this in October 1st, 2013 is when you created your archive. You can still deploy it on the latest version of your Jira server now. From day one, we understand the data differences and we upgrade the data on the fly so that it is guaranteed to deploy and work. Okay. Now, as you know, newer Jira versions might have different permissions since they introduce new permissions, et cetera, but your data is going to be there and it's going to work just fine. Always forward compatible. Okay. Backwards compatibility is possible unless there are, like I mentioned, the new permission that Atlassian introduced, I don't know, 7.4, and tried to deploy 6.0, which don't have this permission. In these cases, there are workarounds to our support. So overall, you'll be fine, regardless of how you want to move your data.
I have another question regarding to that.
Yep.
Do you, for the archiving, do you provide like an overview, like let's say, for example, like I archived an old project and there was like some custom fields of an add-on, and we decided after archiving that project that we don't actively use that add-on anymore. Do you have like an overview of which add-ons were there and if they're like differ from the ones installed currently, and
Yes.
maybe like an overview just of the data so that we can just like look at it.
So the core of the tool is a very powerful analysis engine which does a lot of things, among which is the dependency management. Dependency management means in order for me to get data without any data loss, I'm going to those 4 add-ons and we know which specific version. Actually, we deploy it, and actually I'm going to be very nice if Teodoro or Maria can send a screenshot of that functionality. We give a warning if you have different versions of those add-ons or if you don't have them installed. Okay, that's one thing. Second, once we get through that, because that's like almost at the very, almost at the earliest steps in the migration. Then what we do next is a very deep change in impact analysis, which means say, hey, in order for this to be deployed perfectly, remember, the snapshots of data that we create are completely self-contained. They contain everything which is required for the snapshot to be deployed on any Jira server in the world. Okay, we have all the knowledge. We don't have the add-ons themselves, since licensing usually have add-ons require licensing and licensing requires budgets and approvals, but we know what the add-ons are. So as a second step, we do very deep change in impact analysis, and we show you what are exactly the new things we're going to introduce, like new custom fields, new workflows, or modifications of already existing ones if we have what we call a match. Even further, you can control how much of the new stuff, you bring in, or reuse existing ones via our selective deployment technology. Okay, so basically everything is possible to be accomplished to get the exact outlook of your old project restored to a new server. It could look exactly as it used to, or if you meanwhile you have changed priority schemes, let's say, it could use the new priority settings or severity or any of those.
Okay, cool. That sounds great. Do you plan to have like, for example, to just have that restored temporarily, maybe like provide the functionality that the archive can just be like that we get like the let's say the versions of the add-ons, install them on a development license just for temporary visibility, and then like just import it there.
Yeah.
That should be also possible, right?
So we're getting into a situation which is close to GDRP, collecting your license and putting in a snapshot, and then you can export this snapshot and put it somewhere else. That's dangerous. So we're not planning what you just explained, but you can do it yourself, and it's going to take you just a few minutes, you know.
Okay, great, thanks.
You can go to the developments where you can deploy the snapshot, and you can just install the add-ons just before that. We give you links to those add-ons, so it's easy for you to do that. You know, if you have access to your Mac account, then, you know, 2 minutes.
Cool, thanks.
If you have fast internet connection to deploy it.
Okay. One additional question from my side. I do not want to spoil your big release party, but forward compatibility for archives then includes cloud in the future after your release. So if I have a server archive,
should be. Now, this is one of the particular challenge with the cloud as it changes without notice, right? So depending on the timing, because sometimes the changes are such as we need to adjust our software, right? But we already support that new version of the cloud. It should work just fine. Yeah. The model of the data that we use to store in the snapshot is independent from, you know, cloud or server. So it's, you know,
okay,
as long
perfect.
as it can work anywhere.
Yeah. So perfect. Any other questions from the audience? No. Going once. Going twice. And gone. Thank you, Peter. That was very educational. That was very educational, and we are looking forward to your release party. And hopefully we can have a real glass of champagne then somehow.
We were planning beer, but sure.
Yeah, I mean everybody, beer, champagne, whatever you want, fruit juice, whatever's your poison. One question I forgot to ask: where are you now? Where are you joining us from?
I'm right now in Bulgaria.
Okay.
I'm enjoying quarantine-free environment.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'm located in California, which is under quarantine now.
Yeah.
And it's not doing great. Fingers crossed to all the friends and colleagues in my family, and parts of my family which are there. So everyone's safe, and we go through this unfortunate times without any harm.
Perfect. So I hope the same.
Well, everyone attending today in New York.
So I have a couple of news for this week about our group. We have our breakfast on Thursday, 9 a.m. Join us. It's a virtual breakfast, of course, no in-person breakfast. So bring your own breakfast, whatever you have. But we are planning a picnic, and a real picnic, not just a Zoom picnic. So the city of Berlin, hopefully on Thursday, will remove one of the remaining restrictions. Some restrictions will remain in place. We will get the details on Thursday, but that will make it possible to meet in person again, let's say end of July, for a picnic in the park. And we are trying to set this up. So have a picnic, be safe, bring your own food, and that's what we want to discuss on Thursday during our virtual breakfast. So join us and discuss with us what that could look like, and if you would be willing to join something like that, because we are doing this for you. If you don't need it, if you don't want it, we don't do it. Second thing, we will be here again next week on Monday. Next week on Monday will be a real-life case study by Adaptivist of a large-scale cloud migration they are doing for ARM, the chip manufacturer. So I guess that will be very interesting as well to get the presentation about that, migrating a real-life 20,000 user instance in 5,000 user chunks to the cloud. So I guess that will be very interesting. RSVP, and you find all the links and everything else in the show notes for this video. That's it for me tonight. Thanks again to everybody who participated. Thanks to Peter. All the best, stay healthy, and hope to see you soon in the real world. So have a good time and good night. Bye-bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you.